San Francisco cannot afford to confuse getting stars back with having every problem solved. A championship window only matters when the roster survives long enough to attack it, and Sunday's practice delivered both relief and warning. Faithful, lock in. McCaffrey brought back his explosion. Kittle changed the energy around camp. A veteran free agent possibility entered the conversation, and two crowded position groups became even more intense. We are breaking down what strengthens this team, what still demands action, and where Kyle Shanahan may face his toughest decisions. If you agree the standard is a championship, subscribe to 49ers Express. The first jolt came from the field itself. Christian McCaffrey returned after roughly 3 weeks away with tightness. George Kittle was activated from the physically unable to perform list and joined his first practice of training camp. Diomodor Lunoir also came back after hurting his shoulder during Thursday night's preseason win over the Chargers. 3 important players, 3 different physical situations. One undeniable result. Sunday's practice suddenly looked much closer to real 49ers football. Kittle's return carried the biggest emotional punch. He was in uniform and worked through individual drills, but the staff kept him out of team periods. That was not weakness. It was intelligent progression for a player who had not practiced during camp. San Francisco gains nothing by turning one exciting Sunday into a reckless workload. Kittle changes the geometry of this offense, but only if the team builds him back with September and January in mind. McCaffrey handled more. Reports differed slightly on his exact participation, yet the shared message was encouraging. Nick Wagner reported some team period reps and a handful of carries. Matt Barrows described about half a dozen snaps in one period, including a run McCaffrey broke for more than 25 yards to the right. David Lombardi also had him participating in team drills, while an earlier report from Vic Tafur placed both McCaffrey and Kittle in individual work only. That disagreement over volume is secondary. McCaffrey was back, and multiple observers thought he looked explosive. For an offense built on stressing one defender with several possible answers, that burst matters more than an inflated August snap count. The right move is to stack healthy days, sharpen timing, and let the workload grow without chasing a headline. Lenoir's presence mattered too. His quick return after the shoulder issue preserves flexibility in the secondary and reduces the need to force another player into an oversized role. Sunday did not prove every concern is gone. It proved the 49ers are recovering leverage. Now the challenge is protecting it. Then the timeline turns and the comfort disappears. The next report is not describing that same stage of Kittle's health. It presents the 49ers dealing with the aftermath of a torn Achilles and weighing whether waiting is enough. That distinction matters because this is where roster confidence has to become front office urgency. Bleacher Report's Christopher Knox identified Jonnu Smith as a logical veteran option for San Francisco. Smith is 31 and available after Pittsburgh released him on March 5th to clear $7 million in cap space. His most recent Steelers production was modest: 32 catches, 222 yards, and 2 touchdowns in the analysis cited. 1 year earlier in Miami, he earned his only Pro Bowl selection with 88 receptions, 884 yards, and 8 touchdowns. The question is not whether the resume contains real ability. It does. The question is how much of that Miami version can still be accessed. But faithful, this is the part nobody should ignore. San Francisco would not be signing Smith to impersonate George Kittle. That would be a foolish standard. The value would come from stabilizing the position, giving the passing game another experienced option, and keeping the offense from shrinking while Kittle recovers. Smith could work alongside Jake Tongas rather than forcing one player to absorb the entire burden. Durability strengthens the case. Across 9 NFL seasons, Smith has missed only 6 regular season games, never more than 3 in 1 year, and none since 2022. For a team managing uncertainty at tight end, availability is not a side note. It is part of the appeal. Still, this is a recommendation from an analyst, not evidence that a deal is moving. The 49ers could pursue Smith, wait on Kittle, or choose another path. They would also have to judge his blocking fit, expected role, and whether the financial commitment leaves enough flexibility for problems elsewhere. Cam Inman called the situation a critical bind, especially with Kittle potentially opening the season on the PUP list. That is the pressure point. A title contender cannot let loyalty to the ideal lineup leave the actual lineup exposed. My aggressive read is simple: explore the price now. If Smith's role and cost fit, San Francisco should not sit still just to prove it can survive. Championship rosters protect themselves before a weakness becomes an emergency. That tight end question is about protecting the offense from losing an essential piece. The running back room is creating the opposite problem. San Francisco may have more legitimate answers than expected. Vic Tafur highlighted Jordan James turning the corner and taking off during Sunday's practice. It was one play, not a depth chart announcement, but James has continued to leave a strong impression whenever he has been healthy. This is how a roster battle becomes valuable. James does not need to steal McCaffrey's job. He needs to make Kyle Shanahan trust that the offense can preserve its identity when the rotation changes. A backup who enters the huddle and limits the playbook is only emergency depth. A runner who can see the edge, accelerate through it, protect the quarterback, and execute the details gives the coach freedom. McCaffrey remains the centerpiece. Nobody serious is debating that. Kalen Black offers another physical option. Deebo Samuel brings a different style of backfield usage. James adds one more profile to a group that could force defenses to prepare for several types of stress. That is not excess. Over a full NFL season, it can become protection against fatigue, injury, and predictable tendencies. There is also a harder decision hiding inside the good news. Touches are limited. Game day roster spots are limited. Every additional runner who produces makes the final distribution more complicated. Shanahan has to determine who can be trusted on passing downs, who can handle short yardage contact, who brings special teams value, and who changes the pace without changing the offense's intentions. James turning one corner cannot answer all of that. It can demand more chances to answer it. That is the correct way to read an August flash. Do not crown him. Do not dismiss him. Give him the next rep and increase the difficulty. Put him in protection against pressure looks. Make him run through traffic. Let the complete evaluation catch up to the burst. To everyone who says backfield depth is meaningless behind McCaffrey, answer this in the comments. Which trait should decide the final role? Explosiveness, pass protection, or physical power? Pick one. The faithful understand that a January offense is rarely carried by only 11 names. The final development brings the sharpest emotional contrast of the day. Jacob Cowing looked like a player accelerating toward an answer. Mike Evans left the field looking frustrated and created a new question. Vic Tafur reported that Cowing looked sharp in one-on-one drills and was finishing camp strong. That is exactly when a young receiver needs his best work. The room is crowded, the remaining practices carry more weight, and nobody wins a roster spot because the coaching staff likes his potential in theory. Cowing has to create separation that survives contact, finish catches, and prove his speed has a function inside this offense. The encouraging part is the timing. Strong early practices create curiosity. Strong late practices create pressure on the decision makers. When cuts move closer, a receiver who keeps winning forces coaches to imagine the cost of letting him go. Can another team claim him? Does his skill set exist elsewhere on the roster? Is his value on offense, special teams, or both? Those questions can move a player from the edge of the room into the center of the discussion. Cowing still has to finish. One-on-ones favor receivers in ways full team periods may not. Route discipline, blocking effort, communication, and execution against disguised coverage remain part of the evaluation. But this is not empty camp applause. It is momentum arriving when the roster argument is becoming serious. Evans created a completely different feeling. The veteran left practice, removed his pads, and appeared frustrated. Jennifer Lee Chan reported that the situation could be injury-related, though there was no immediate indication of the severity. That is where responsible concern should stop. His exit deserves attention. It does not give anyone permission to invent a diagnosis or a recovery timeline. The strategic connection between these two stories is immediate. If Evans misses practice time, Cowing and the other receivers gain more opportunities with higher-level units. That can accelerate evaluations and alter the shape of the room. If Evans returns quickly, the competition becomes even tighter because the younger players have fewer snaps available to make their case. San Francisco must handle both sides without panic. Protect the veteran until the medical picture is clear. Push the young receiver to prove that his late surge belongs in a real offensive plan. Purdy also needs continuity, so every extra rep should build timing instead of merely filling an empty spot on the practice sheet. A contender does not choose between patience and competition. It uses both. Evans has earned a measured response. Cowing has earned more difficult work. That is why this final story may carry the greatest roster consequence. A healthy Evans raises the ceiling. A rising Cowing strengthens the floor. If the 49ers can preserve one while developing the other, Brock Purdy gains more than another name at receiver. He gains options that survive a long season. Sunday gave San Francisco relief, pressure, depth, and uncertainty all at once. McCaffrey looked explosive. Kittle's different recovery scenarios demand careful separation and an aggressive contingency plan. Jordan James made the backfield harder to trim. Cowing pushed forward while Evans forced patience. That is not chaos. It is the real work of building a contender before the season arrives. Faithful, let me know where you stand. What is the most urgent next step? Manage the returning stars, call Jonnu Smith, settle the backfield, or protect the receiver room? Drop your answer below, subscribe to 49 ERS Express, and come back tomorrow ready to finish the job.